So this is my point. Let's read about the rise of lonely single men, what that means and why it's happening. And then I want to point out, when you start breaking down the systems of relationships in this country, everyone ends up unhappy. Psychology Today reports younger and middle-aged men are the loneliest they've been in generations, and it's probably going to get worse. This is not my typical rosy view of relationships, but a reality nonetheless. Over the last 30 years, men have become a larger portion of that growing group of long-term single people. And while you don't actually need to be in a relationship to be happy, men typically are happier and healthier when partnered. Here are three broad trends in relationship landscapes, that suggest heterosexual men are in for a rough road ahead. Dating apps.
Okay, before we get into that, I do need to bring this up very quickly. Actually, I'm gonna let him continue, and then I have to bring up this article or this subject as far as like men are happier in marriage, and rather, it's kind of a draw. It's kind of like a tie. Let's just say. I'll let him continue here, and I'll go grab that article.
Whether you're just starting to date or you're recently divorced and dating again, dating apps are a huge driver of new romantic connections in the U.S. The only problem is that upwards of 62% of users are men, and many women are overwhelmed with how many options they have. Competition in online dating is fierce, and lucky in-person chance encounters with dreamy partners are rarer than ever. Let's stop there and address that issue. How does that make sense? How 62% of dating app users are men? So wouldn't that imply that there are a bunch of single women that just don't use the apps? No. What's happening is the top 20% of men are dating all of the women. Okay, not all, but most. So with women becoming more promiscuous, and again, not a judgment statement, feminists. I'm saying quite literally, women are more freer and there's lower standards that they used to be very puritanical. And now women can bang whoever they want. Okay. Well, you see, women used to want commitments from men before giving it up because of the risks involved in pregnancy. Now they're willing to just give it up. On Tinder, for instance, you see all these messages where it's like men and women just being like, smash, smash. Okay, well, if that's the case, women are only going to go for the most attractive men. They have to have skills, resources, and good looks, which is the higher end of the bell curve. For men, they're just like, I'll take what I can get, because men aren't driven by wealth and status the same way women tend to be, or at least.
All right, let's halt right there. I've got this one up here. I've got to show you this. So this is I remembered, like, one of the things that like Ruslan was trying to hit me on the Adam Sosnick show was like, oh, well, men are better off in marriage than they are out. I'm like, no, they're not. You can talk about like, oh, they make more money. Yeah, because they have to make more money. We've been talking about this since hell, Turd Flinging Monkey's been talking about that since like the PragerU days. This has been, by the way, that's been an argument for like tradcons for a very long time. Well, men want to get married because they're better off. What is it? Mark Driscoll, men are like big semi trucks and they drive straighter when they have a full load behind them. It's like, dude, really? The reason why guys aren't getting married is because they see it as a raw deal on a lot of different ways. I mentioned this in like I said, my fourth book in religion in the marriage section, where I get into and I say marriage today is a unconscionable contract. It's not that guys don't want to get married. I want everybody to have a really good, successful, happy, loving, idealistic marriage, just like mine. That's why I don't say that. That's why I don't put that forth when people say, well, shouldn't we be aiming guys towards marriage because guys will be healthier if they do? Well, first of all, that's bullshit. Second of all, it's like it's by context. It's by like the person. It's by the belief set. It's by your values. It's by whatever. You can add all that stuff in there that you want to. But one thing you cannot add in there is like, well, you're going to be healthier, happier, and make more money. Yeah, probably, because you have to make more money to support that. If you're not, you're economically inviable, and suddenly, you're going to lose half your stuff. Or the number one precipitator of divorce is a woman getting a promotion, and making more money. And now suddenly the equal partnership isn't so freaking equal anymore. And she's making more money. And she's like, why am I taking care of this motherfucker? Why is he's just another mouth to feed? He becomes a child at that point. He becomes a dependent child, or a dependent, that she has to, even if he's making a good chunk of change, if she's making more than he is, that's That's lizard brain. That's hind brain that thinks that. That's why those promotions and that boost in status and that boost in money precipitates divorce. Because we think of marriage now in terms of an equal partnership, or like, egalitarian marriages are, that's the ideal. Everybody makes choices. Well, if that woman is making more money, she's like, why am I allowing this guy to drive the bus when I make more money than him? And what that also does is it says, well, if that guy is not making as much money and suddenly he wants to like move to a different state, or he says, you know what, I'm the head of the household and we're going to go here because I can make more money doing that. She's not going to leave that high paying job. Or usually, unless she's a very extraordinary woman who has some sort of like, who will, submit or defer to a man's authority, possibly. But usually it precipitates divorce. Statistically, it precipitates divorce. It's like, what is it? White collar divorce. And even if women get to the point where they want to marry a guy who's blue collar, right? A guy who's like in the service industry, he's an electrician, he's a plumber, whatever. Even if a woman were to be at that point where she's like, okay, I know he's just a plumber. I know he's this. By the way, nothing against plumbers. I know they make a shit ton of money, but like it's a perception. It's not sexy, right? He's not a businessman. He's not like in Wall Street, like telling people what to do. And so she's got to sort of mull that over as well. So what you're looking at is you're looking at this idea that social aspects, social conditions should be what informs a woman's rational decision to like allow him to lead, right? But that's not how it works out. And that's why it precipitates divorce. Now, here's the other thing. One of the things that I'm sick and goddamn tired of is listening to this shit about like, oh, men are better off when they're married, right? Well, in some cases they might be, in some cases they might not be. But when we look at it statistically across the board, it's kind of a wash. And I'll tell you why. Because when you look at, let's see, I've got this, where'd that go? I'm going to share a screen with you just quickly here. Where'd it go? There. Stay with me here. Stay with me. This is from Medium. Actually, this is like last year. You guys can see that? Maybe you can. Let me blow it up a little bit for you. American marriage's happiness and health decline over time. Okay. So, let's see. In one of the longest running studies of the link between marrying and happiness ongoing for more than 20 years, this is in Germany, German adults were asked repeatedly year after year how happy they were. Now, any article, any study that is based and premised upon a continued, sustainable, maintainable state of contentment and happiness is always suspect. So I'm going to throw that out there. That's actually me having a caveat against this on my own point here. Okay. That way, researchers can see if people get any happier when they are married and than when they were single. Okay. So essentially what this comes down to, once you get past the honeymoon effect, let's see where to go. Longitudinal studies in which the data were analyzed in the appropriate way. All people who ever married since the course of the study were compared to those who stayed single. It is not a new study. It was published in the Journal of Marriage and Family in 2012. That's why this is from an older study. And this is the update of it. Okay. Let's see where to go. Let's see. I'll describe. I'm just going to get down to the money shot here real quick. Yeah, I'll put this in the description so you can see what I'm talking about. In American studies, there's an American study. Some of the dogs just did not bark. Okay, people who became partnered did not report any better health than those who stayed single. Those who were partnered recently had not become any healthier, and those who had been partnered for a long time had not become any healthier either. Okay. So it's kind of a wash. More recent studies show that people who marry report that their health is slightly worse than when they were single. Those who had gotten partnered within the past 3 years reported higher self-esteem than those who stayed single. For those who had gotten partnered more than 3 years ago, though, their self-esteem was no different from those who stayed single. So there might be sort of like the honeymoon effect is what they're saying. It's like after 3 years, you're kind of like, oh, okay. I love being married, blah, blah, blah. I'm 3 years in. And then later on, it's kind of like, it's a wash. I'm not saying it's bad or it's bad or it's good. Although there's one that says they're slightly unhealthy. The select group of people who got partnered. Okay. I got to that. Now at last, the results I've been waiting for all these years. If you include all the analysis of all the people who ever got partnered, how do they compare to those who stayed single? Again, the newness of the union matters. Those who had gotten partnered recently did report better outcomes on all of the measures of psychological well-being. But for those who had gotten partnered between 4 and 6 years ago, there was no difference whatsoever between them and the people who had stayed single. Got it? The bottom line is dramatically different from the mythology about transformative effects of getting married. If you include everyone who got married or started cohabiting over the course, they're not even married, you're just cohabiting over the course of the 6-year study, and not just those couples who stayed together, then those who got partnered between 4 and 6 years ago differed not at all from those who stayed single. They were not happier. They were not any less depressed. They were not any healthier, and they had no higher self-esteem. Okay. That's from American Marriages. What is this from? This is from, I forget where this is from. Oh, it's from medium.com. And this is a September 8th, 2021. So it's a fairly recent study. And there you have it. Okay. So now that we've sort of dispelled that myth, I mean, somewhat, I mean, you can probably find something that says, oh, well, women are better off when they don't have kids, right? You can prove anything. However, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. Is it a causation? Is it a correlation? And that's the whole thing when it comes down to, like, when I have to answer these questions about, like, hey, Rollo, shouldn't we be encouraging guys to get married because they'll stay healthier and live longer lives? Well, not according to that study, not according to what they were talking about here. And not necessarily, I want people to have good lives. I mean, I hope you live a good, long life. I hope you have a good marriage. I hope you find a woman who's, like, loving, loyal, nurturing, screws you like a porn star and really wants to go off into perpetuity and has, respect for you and loves you till the day you die. I hope that. I want that to happen for you, but I can't prove that with the statistics like that. So it's not necessarily like guys want to say they want to find something that's going to prove what their ego investment is in their moralism. Okay, and I understand the desire for that. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the stats that you're looking at don't really correlate or don't push that. You can come up with something else, sure, but all I can say is, like, the reason why. But I have to look at what is and not what should be. Should you live a good long life and have a great wife? Yeah, absolutely. Are you going to follow in my footsteps to do that? Probably not, because I'm me and you're you. I don't know what's going to happen. There's probably going to be some news technology that's going to, change things up for you. Maybe it changes the sexual marketplace. The point being is that people say, well, why you're down on marriage? You're married too. Yeah, I am. 26 years now. I love it. It was a great lifestyle choice for me. It still is. And I love my wife dearly. And I am still very much glad that I made the decision that I did. However, I can't prove that I live a healthier life because I am married, as opposed to, like, me being single to my age right now. I can't prove that. Maybe I could, like, through an anecdotal, like, relating it to you. But statistically speaking, it's a wash.